viewers, heartfelt welcome to this video. This section covers KUHS question paper of Management of Nursing Services and Education asked in April 2019. It is part B, handling answer keys of short notes. The aim is to equip each student with the basic idea of presenting the answer during their exam. The questions were essays, 2 essay, 15 mark each. First one, define supervision, enumerate the types of supervision, explain the principles of supervision. Second essay, define budgeting, list down the purposes of budget, describe role of a nurse administrator in budgeting. The answer key of these two essays we have seen in the previous video as part A. Always read the instruction, that is, answer all questions and draw diagram wherever necessary. So you must answer all questions and you should have at least one diagram in each answer. The short notes were 5 in number, each one carrying 5 marks. Question number 3 in the short note, Principles of Adult Learning, 4 Student Welfare Program, 5 Methods of Staff Recruitment, 6 Principles of Administration, 7 Teaching System. In this video, that is part B, we handle the answer key of these short notes. The question paper continues. Include the next as the enumerate the following 5 questions under that, each one 2 mark. 8 for functions of leadership, 9 for uses of job description, 10 for principles of collective bargaining, 11 for advantages of nursing audit, 12 for factors influencing staffing, and the fourth part is differentiate between. It also has 5 questions, each one with 2 mark. 13 administration and management, strategic planning and operational planning, records and reports. 16 centralization and decentralization. 17 capital budget and revenue budget. Today we will see, as I told already, the answer key of short notes. In the next section, we will cover the answers of enumerate the following and differentiate between of these questions. Let us come to the answer key. The first one of short note is Principles of Adult Learning. It carries 5 marks. First, it is good to define what is adult learning. It is written here, adult learning is defined as the entire range of formal, non-formal and informal learning activities which are undertaken by adults after a break since leaving initial education and training, which result in the acquisition of new knowledge and skills. Next, we enter into the answer of the question. There are 8 principles of adult learning. 4 principles are presented in this slide with the essential point under each one. First one, active learning. It means active participation through discussion, feedback and activities creates more learning than passive learning. Second, problem-centric. Adults are not there just to get more information. If your presentation does not help them solve their pressing issues, it will be forgotten. Third principle is previous experience. New information has to be linked to previous knowledge and experience. Fourth one, relevance. If the information being presented is not relevant to the listener's life and work, it will not get their attention. The fifth principle, emotional connection. Presentation that connect with the learner's emotion are more likely to be remembered, recalled and learned by adults. Sixth one, self-learning. Adult learners believe, whether accurate or not, can interfere or enhance their learning. 7. Alignment. If the learning outcome do not match the content, the learner feels disconnected and learning is hampered. And the last principle, the eighth one, is fun. Learning should be fun. As a presenter, if you are not having fun presenting your information, then you should stop. These are the 8 principles of adult learning with the essential point under each one. Now, develop your answer with this key idea in your mind. Do not tell about what is easy. Tell the adult how and where it will work. It is a nutshell of the principles of adult learning. Coming to the fourth question, the second of short notes, student welfare program. It carries 5 marks. Mention about the need of student welfare program. It is an integral part of the total program and is of vital importance. It covers the physical and mental well-being of students. Such needs of the students are partly met by facilities provided in hostel and partly through an active and adequate student health, guidance and counseling service, and opportunities for recreational, cultural, and religious activities. First student welfare program is Student Health Service. Under that, mention the objectives first. 5 objectives are mentioned here. Number 1, promote good health habits. 5, maintain good health. 3rd, prevent and control diseases. 4, prevent themselves from certain infectious diseases by protective inoculation. And 5, maintain students' health records. Next, mention about 6 golden rules of maintaining physical health. They are adequate rest and sleep, positive attitude towards exercise and daily activities, well-balanced food habit, adequate fluid intake and regularity in elimination, personal hygiene in general, and good body posture. Go to 6 golden rules of maintaining mental health. Respect yourself and others. Organize and plan your day-to-day activities. Permit your mind to control your entire self. Realize that life is a series of ups and downs. Accept correction, rules, and new ideas with an open mind. 6. Develop your strong points and minimize your weak ones in an intelligent manner. Under Student Health Service, next is Health Assessment Program. It consists of Schedule of Health Assessment, Medical Examination on Admission, Annual Medical Examination, and Health Assessment during illness. Next, under this is Healthcare Facilities. It includes Health Clinic, Sick Room for Students, and Health Records. The second student welfare program is Student Guidance and Counseling Services. Its objectives include to help the students to adjust to group living and educational program, meet or solve his problem, make his own decision, discover and understand their academic potentialities, abilities and limitations, develop the ability of self-guidance. Next, you should mention about teachers' role in student guidance and counseling. Where there is no formal counseling program in a school of nursing or a college of nursing, here the teachers have a responsibility to assume the role of counselor. Third welfare program is Student Nurses Association, short form is SNA. Its objectives include to help the students to uphold the dignities and ideals of professions, to promote a corporate spirit among common goal, to furnish nurses with advice in their training and course of study leading up to professional qualification, to encourage leadership ability and to help students to gain a wider knowledge of nursing profession, to increase students' social contact and general knowledge, to encourage both professional and recreational meeting, games and sports, to provide a special section in Nursing Journal of India for the benefit of students, to encourage students to compete for prizes in Student Nurses Exhibition and to attend national and regional conferences and meetings. Fourth program is Student Council or College Union. The Student Council, which would be an executive organ of Student Nurses Association and will function as the officially recognized organization of students. It should be composed of 2 or more elective members from each batch. It should also have president, vice president, secretary, and other office bearers as mentioned by the university or recognized authority, and should maintain accurate records of all meetings. And the other welfare services include Communication and Personality Development Cell, Professional Development Cell, Higher Studies Cell, Art Circle, NSS, Games and Sports. This is the end of answer key of this question. Now develop your answer further by reading your books. Coming to the third short answer, the question number 5 in the question paper, methods of staff recruitment, carrying 5 marks. Mention about recruitment first. Recruitment involves seeking and attracting a pool of people from which qualified candidates for vacancies can be chosen. This definition is given by Bias and Rowe. Go to sources of recruitment next in your answer. The sources are internal sources and external sources. This is otherwise the methods of staff recruitment. Internal method and external method. Otherwise we can say the internal methods include promotion, transfers, upgrading, demotion, retired employees and retrenched employees. The external methods include advertisements, campus recruitment, placement agencies, outsourcing or consultancies, employment exchanges and labor contractors. Coming to the internal sources. These sources within the organization itself to fill a position and are known as internal source of recruitment. The first one, transfer. The employees are transferred from one department to another department according to their efficiency and experience. From one department to another. The second is promotion. The employees are promoted from one department to another department with more benefits and greater responsibility based on efficiency and experience. So they are promoted to a higher position based on their experience and responsibility, and they are paid higher benefits also. Third, upgrading and demotion. It is according to the presence of present employee. Fourth is retired and retrenched employees. Recruitment of such people save time and cost of the organization, as retired and retrenched people are already aware of organizational culture, policies and procedure. Next, you should mention about the merits and demerits of internal recruitment. Here you can see the merits and here you can see the demerits. Merits include employee motivation, employees loyalty, cost effectiveness, simplified process, reliability and time saving. Demerits are lack of fresh talent, encourage favoritism, limited scope and raises conflicts. Next we should mention about external sources. It means recruiting candidates from all other sources like outsource agency are known as external sources of recruitment. First, press advertisement. Advertisement of vacancy in newspaper and journals are widely used source of recruitment. Educational institution. Various management institutions like engineering, medical college, etc. are good source of recruiting well qualified executives, engineers and medical staff through campus recruitment or campus placement. Placement agencies. Several private consulting firms performs recruitment function on behalf of client companies by charging a fee. It is known as RPO or Recruitment Process Outsourcing. Fourth one, employment exchanges. There are government-run employment exchanges that provide job information to job seekers and help employers to identify suitable candidates. Fifth, labor contractors. Manual workers can be recruited through contractors who maintain close contact with the sources of such worker. Sixth one, unsolicited application. Many job seekers visit the office of well-known companies on their own. Such callers can help in creating the talent pool. Seventh, recruitment at factory gate. Unskilled workers may be recruited at the factory gate, and this may be employed whenever a permanent worker is absent. About the merits of external sourcing: fair and impartial, transparency, fresh talent, wider scope, and organizational growth. The demerits are employee turnover, time consuming, huge cost, employee dissatisfaction, and insecurity. Next, we mention about the recent trends in recruitment. It include outsourcing, poaching or raiding, and e-recruitment. Outsourcing helps the organization by initial screening of candidates according to the need of the organization and creating a suitable pool of talent for the final selection by the organization. Poaching or raiding, it means employing a competent or experienced person already working with another reputed company in the same or different industry. The organization might be a competitor in the industry. E-recruitment, many big organizations use internet as a source of recruitment. Here is the end of answer key of this question. Next is principles of administration. We can mention the principles under the name of their authors. Here you can see 7 principles which are called Henry Fayol's principles of administration. First one, division of work. Next, authority and responsibility. Third, discipline. 4, unity of command. 5, unity of direction. 6, subordination of individual interest to organizational interest. 7, remuneration of personnel. 8, centralization. 9, scalar chain of command. 10, order. 11, equity. 12, stability of tenure. 13, initiative, and 14, esprit de corps. These are the 14 principles of administration by Henry Fayol. Here you can see the 6 principles of administration according to Feiner. They are principle of oneness, principle of specialism and the whole, principle of hierarchy and regimentation, principle of morale, principle of bureaucracy, and principle of self-administration. About all this principle, you read from your textbook and develop your answer further. And the 7th and the last of short note is teaching systems. 3 commonly method teaching systems in nursing are teaching block, which include full block and partial block, study day system, and daily classes. Teaching system is teaching block. Under that, about partial block system. It is a modified teaching block in which the students are in teaching block in the morning and go to clinicals in the afternoon or vice versa. Next is full block. It is a complete block of class. The student is withdrawn from clinical area. During this time, they follow a planned program in school, attend clinical area after their subjects are complete. The advantages of teaching block. The students are freed from ward responsibilities while having a concentrated period of instruction. Classes are conveniently given to the whole group. Curriculum planning is facilitated and the planning of correlated teaching made easier. Students have uninterrupted periods of clinical experience. Ward administration is made easier when the students do not have to leave the ward daily to attend classes. Attention is drawn to educational status of students. Coming to the second method, that is the study day system. The study day system is literally a complete day spent by the students in a week. Example, the students who go to clinicals in all days except Monday and Friday. Then Monday and Friday is called a study day. Advantages: the teacher have contact with the students all through the semester. All the students can clarify their doubt when they come for study days. The third method is daily classes. If neither of above two systems is used, the third possibility is holding single classes daily or several times per week. During the first and second years, frequent scheduling of classes will be required to cover the curriculum. This is the end of answer key of all short notes. Thanks for watching. Help the channel move forward by your valuable subscription and sharing with your friends. Let us see in the next video with the part C that deals with the answers of enumerate the following and differentiate between of this question paper.